communists originally thought, hey, we'll get some guns and we'll go in there and we'll get some of the Americans to turn to us and we'll go in there and shoot them up and take over the country. And they tried that, I guess, but it didn't work very well. The Americans were too committed to America. But there was another guy named Antonio Gramsci. Now, he was an Italian and he was a communist. He says, now, when a country gets big like America, you're not going to push them over like that with a gun. You're going to have to undermine their morality, like you were just saying, undermine their moral thinking, and then you can take them.
You have to weaken them from within and do things from the outside that weaken them even more. And you can see the divisiveness that we have inside the United States that's already starting to happen. And then from without, there are things that are happening to our country, like many of these terrible, terrible trade deals the Obama administration put into effect that weakens us financially. Then immigration. The strongest man cannot continue to stand if you keep putting more and more weight on his back.
That's right.
That's what's happening slowly over time. We're starting to take on more and more and more of the world's problems. And I understand why people want to come to the United States. It's a safe country. It's a wealthy country. You don't have to worry about some warlord coming to your house in the middle of the night and making you disappear. Types of things that are going on in many other parts of the world. So I can understand why people want to come here. But the problems that are going on in every corner of the world are not the United States problems to solve.
Right.
We can have empathy and sympathy and do what we can to help, but we cannot bring everybody here because then we can't take care of our own anymore.
Exactly. Like you say, if you got the strongest person in the world, if you keep putting more and more on him,
eventually he's going to break. And that is what many of the liberals in our country are wanting to have happen. Like this so-called caravan that's coming up from our southern border. That's not a caravan. That's an invasion. If you have over 1,000 people who are absolutely hell-bent on coming to your country and forcing their way in, no matter what you say, that's not a caravan. A caravan is something that is a parade. This isn't a parade. This is an invasion. When they get here, they mean to come in and do as they please.
And I notice if you look at it, a lot of them are just young men, like an army. They're not a whole lot of children, and there may be a few, and women and children, but mostly it's young soldiers, you might as well say.
Fighting age, yes.
Fighting age. Here is a picture of Antonio Gramsci. We're trying to do a lot of things at once here, and it's not necessarily going to work. But the other thing people realize, I guess, is that Nikita Khrushchev is dead and gone. There are new people that have come to take his place. One of them is George Soros, who has got billions of dollars, and he's putting it into programs like the Southern Poverty Law Center. They're trying to say if you're a Christian organization, you're full of hate.
Right.
And they're trying to stamp out Christianity. So that's been going on.
If you look in the Gospels, at one point, one of the apostles asked Jesus, what will be the signs of the end? And one of the things that Jesus responded was when good becomes evil and evil becomes good. And you can see that is readily apparent in what's going on in today's society. Any Christian organization speaks of biblical moral things, they're automatically branded as haters, branded as being exclusionary and things of this nature. All things that are good are being branded as evil, and all these evil things that have always been evil, political correctness now is starting to say, hey, that's not so bad. We ought to be inclusive of that. That's one of the signs of the end.
Now, I want to read this. These are groups that are backing the Southern Poverty Law Center. Got George Clooney gave $1 million. Apple CEO Jim Cook announced they're giving another $1 million. Then here's some other people. The Bank of America, I think that's Visa cards. Charles Schwab, that's one of the big stockbrokers. Disney, Freddie Mac, I should say. Kraft Cheese, Heinz Ketchup, Liberty Mutual Insurance, J.P. Morgan Chase Bank. Can you imagine all these people? Shell Gasoline, Verizon, cell phone, and many more. They're trying to dump on and trying to get rid of America, really.
And America made these companies. All these companies that are wealthy and billionaires and super wealthy companies were made on the backs of America. And now they're trying to undo America.
It's amazing. This is from Tony Perkins with the Family Research Council. That's kind of amazing. Let's see what I got here. Okay, now this is from Judicial Watch, which is a conservative group that's trying to uncover corruption and things like that. Here he says that George Soros puts $18 billion into Open Society Foundation for long-term support. Well, see, those are the people like in this book where they want to destroy America and bury America without falling on shock. They are really bad actors. It's always been troubling to me, like you said, that here's companies and people that have become wealthy because of the free enterprise system and America Constitution and all of that. And now they're turning against America.
Right. They use capitalism to become wealthy and powerful, and then they try to switch us to a communist or socialist agenda.
Can you imagine that? That always troubled me. How could that happen?
Well, many of our politicians are on board with this, and I would go so far as to say that they are receiving some money either directly from Soros or from Soros-backed entities, which kind of leans them in the direction that he wants them to go. And I think John McCain, keynote speaker at a group or an organization that had links to Soros. All these politicians like Bernie Sanders, he's openly socialist. How can you be a leader in a capitalist country, and capitalism has made the country as wealthy and prosperous and strong as it is, and then say, hey, we want to go to a system that we know from how it's operated in other countries will not work? That's going to destroy us from within, and those are things that Soros is pushing.
George Soros and his incredible growing disinformation foundation. In other words, they're saying that he has bought up the news media. He owns that. Really, he owns the Democrat Party.
Some say. I can see why they would say that.
Can you imagine that? He's put so much money in there that he's kind of controlling. There's a moderate Democrat. He wants to get rid of them and put radical people in there. And, of course, he wants to take over the Republican Party, too, if he can. We are in a situation where we need to work together. Everybody is important, and we need to try to overcome all of these things that are happening. Let's see.
And anyone that you see that speaks against Soros or his agenda is automatically branded a person who's full of hate and divisiveness, branded as an evil person and pushed to the side. That has got to stop, because once you get to a situation where only one train of thought prevails, whoever is the leader of that train of thought becomes the leader of this world. And I think the Bible clearly identifies that as the Antichrist.
This is, again, from Judicial Watch, dated November 5th, 2018. And he says that they've received documents from the country of Albania that shows that George Soros is in there trying to topple that country. And he's using tax money to try to do that from the State Department. So there's a deep state, and they are trying to use our tax money to do his bad work, his evil deeds. An ambassador to Macedonia named Jess Bailey was appointed by Obama, but he's still there now. He's, again, trying to topple the conservative government in Macedonia. George Soros is working behind the scenes with Soros Open Society Foundation, constituting and interfering. Now, it's against the law for them to try to take over the government,
right? But
he's still doing it. So this is from Judicial Watch and the Soros-funded Open Society Foundation. And he's put money into a lot of front groups, trying to put them over, hard left political groups. Here's Microsoft. In a stunning move later last year, Soros transferred the bulk of his personal wealth, $18 billion, to his Open Society Foundation, which is now second only to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in U.S. assets. Here, Steve Jobs died of cancer, but they've got other people in there. Here's another one that's surprising. Anti-Israel Amnesty International. Well, I never realize them as a left-wing organization, but he's saying that they're anti-Israel. Amnesty International, the Human Rights Campaign, his network, Entire American Left. Well, I think we've gone through that, and I think it's time now to try to figure out what do we need to do about all of this. This is a DVD of Antifa, about 50 or 100 fellas dressed up in black suits with masks, and they're chanting out in California. They chant, "No Trump, no wall, no USA at all."
Well, then they should leave.
But they want to take us all down.
Their agenda, one of the tenets of their agenda is an abolition of the First Amendment. Well, and I think Ronald Reagan said it in a speech many years ago, if they are allowed to do the thing that they're wanting to do, then they wouldn't be allowed to do the things that they're doing. How can they use their freedoms of speech to speak against free speech? It's circular thinking.
Exactly. Here's the other thing. We're trying to say, what should we as Christian people be doing at this point in light of all of this subversive stuff that's going on? And it seems to me there are two things. One is this is a Jesus movie, a DVD, and they say this DVD has been circulated more than any other DVD. And it's about Jesus. It's his birth, his miracles, his life in general, then his crucifixion, his resurrection. Then there's an invitation on here too. And we get these for free, really. And we would like to send this to you today if you'll call that number 895-5025, 895-5025. If you could call that right now, there'll probably be just an answering machine because we're all here on the program. But if you'll call 895-5025 right now and leave your name, address, and phone number and tell on the message that you want the Jesus film, we'll get that right out to you. And some churches are getting enough to go out and distribute it to everyone in their neighborhood. And also you can put the times of your services, say like 9 o'clock you have a service, or 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, or whatever your service time is. You can hand this out and give it out to everyone in your neighborhood so that they will be able to come to your church and also hear the Jesus movie. And the other thing I thought we ought to do, this is a petition to put "In God We Trust" back in every classroom in Kentucky. We're just going to do Kentucky. Now, Arkansas has done this, and they've put "In God We Trust" in every single classroom in Arkansas, and they're in the process of doing it. We would have to raise the money for the frames and everything to put that up. But just like Khrushchev said, we're going to bury you by getting rid of morality and putting in there politically correct ideas, we can reverse all of that by putting God back in our public schools.
I would like to see that, and also a reintroduction of the Pledge of Allegiance. When I was in school, every morning we pledged allegiance to the flag. Now that has become something that's offensive to many people because we've taken in so many people from foreign countries that have no allegiance to the United States. They want to pledge allegiance, even though we are now the country that's sustaining them. But I think that needs to be reindoctrinated into the American public schools.
I think that's right.
When you take away from a young age a child's ideology that they are part of America and what America stands for, it's not difficult to make them sway with the breeze as an adult and get into all these new age crazy ideas because they haven't been told from a young age that they are American citizens and what America stands for.
We're running out of time, but I just want to say, call that number right now, 895-5025. Leave your name, address, and phone number, and we'll get this petition out to you. And you can make copies of it. Get everyone in your church to sign that petition. We need to work together, we need to organize, and we need to take our country back. Is that right?
I believe so. It'll be an uphill fight because the powers that be have become so entrenched, but it can be done.
With God's help.
With God's help, obviously, yes.
Richard Pearson, we really appreciate you being here and helping us with this really important subject. And we would like you to Tune in again next week for the rest of the news.
I'm an allergist and family doctor, board certified in both allergy and internal medicine. I specialize in allergy, headaches, sinus, hives, cough, asthma, hypertension, and diabetes. We're located at 1404 Browns Lane near Norton Suburban Hospital. Our phone number is 895-5088.
Bureaus and everything else. And this is the egomaniacs that sometimes get appointed to these things create all these problems. And the rank and file under what I think of Freedom of Information Act, assets all over the world. These were double agents kind of things. They got a list of them, and our enemies annihilated, executed 237 of them.
Ooh.
These were the people that were doing spying actually in the Middle East. That's what we have to totally rely now on the Mossad of Israel for the kind of information we used to get on our own. So,
who executed them?
The Ayatollahs and all the other types they were in their country spying on them, so they were eliminated. The KGB and others were the ones that removed them because they were in Russia and several other countries.
Who killed them all off, you say?
They released the list.
Who released the list?
It was all, they used I'm not sure who the individual was started, but it was the Freedom of Information Act. You could ask for this information, you could pull it up, and this is all part of what computers can do and all that kind of stuff. So they got the list and knew who they were, who, what, where, and how.
You can't get anything under Freedom of Information now.
No.
They gave it all the life and death material away.
I've studied history for almost all my life because I get curiosity. One thing leads to another. But give an example of Iran. When the two guys from Standard Oil California and another oil company made a deal with Saudi Arabia.
Hi, this is Frank Simon with the rest of the news. Our special guest today is Ed Holloway, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the CIA and Kevin Shipp, who has been a CIA agent and found some things that were wrong with the CIA and had to pull out. CIA pretty much destroyed him. Let me just play about 1 minute or two on his DVD that comes off of YouTube if you want to see the original.
William Binney, I'd recommend you go to and listen to some of his talks about what the NSA is doing today. He was a high-level NSA senior manager at the top of the ranks, and he came out and blew the whistle on the NSA domestic surveillance program and Trailblazer, which had lost $7 million at that point. He was taking a shower one night. The shower curtain flew open. There's an FBI SWAT team in his house, and he's got a gun at his head. They raided his entire house. Then there is Thomas Drake. Thomas Drake was an NSA whistleblower. He went through the system. He reported it to his managers that this was a problem. This was surveilling American citizens and lost $7 million. Something needs to be done about it. He went through his supervisors and went through the system. His house was raided by the FBI. He was arrested and charged with espionage. They fought it in court, and it was winnowed down to a misdemeanor charge. Thomas Drake is out. Thomas Drake has lost his career now. This was the case that Edward Snowden cited. He said, this is why I didn't go through the system. This is why I left the U.S. and reported it to the British newspaper. Because I saw this Snowden thing. I saw them do this to Thomas Drake. That's exactly what they would have done, or worse.
This guy that was speaking is Kevin Shipp, and he is on YouTube. This particular segment came from The Price of Freedom. But you gave us some good insights before the program started. Can you repeat that?
Well, we were talking about what has gone on in the dedicated, hardworking people that work for agencies like the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency that have been doing an incredible job forever. But in the process, there have been leaders who have their own agenda and other things and their egos and all those that came forward and have destroyed certain things. They have a different agenda. And now you've had, in the last 30, 40 years, an infiltration of other organizations into the input and direction of the CIA and others. There were several years ago when there was an exposure under the Freedom of Information Act of assets. These were the people that were, in effect, feeding us information from the inside of certain countries that are enemies of the United States and others. That was invaluable information that we needed to have. And in that process, they were key assets. The Freedom of Information Act, when it released the names of those people and their location, they were systematically destroyed, assassinated, everything else, and it was completely destroyed. And in that process, we were completely deaf, dumb, and blind about what was going on in some of these countries. And now we've had to rely on people like the Israeli, the Mossad. But again, when you do that, you rely on somebody else, and they'll only give you the information that they want you to have that may have an impact on them. So all of those things, because they don't no longer trust us, that the information that was given that could be used against them and others will become exposed. So we watched this kind of thing. We go down the line, and Brennan, who was the former head of the CIA, was another one that was part of that thing, who was appointed by Obama and others, having no interest in this kind of intelligence. But it's a vital part of it. It always has been. And Donovan, former commander of a unit during World War II, but then became head of the OSS, which was an invaluable body that was a primary ingredient in our winning World War II. And after the war, Harry Truman decided that we don't need an intelligence agency like that. He disbanded it. And then they found out that we really do need an intelligence agency. There were so many things going on around the world. Communism was reaching at a peak, and they were expanding and all that. We needed to have information about what was going on in the world. So in that process, CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, was created as a replacement for the OSS. And there were certain things that happened. But in that process, others became involved. J. Edgar Hoover, for example, felt that that was an infringement on what he was doing and how he did it, and he became an enemy of the CIA and everything else and tried to take over things that they were doing and all the other things. And any time you create an agency or a program or anything else, and you add the human element to it, you have the risk of having that kind of thing destroy the efforts and the intent that was originally there. I can give you another example, a classic one, was Iran. There were two boys that were geologists, and at the end of World War I, they gave the House of Saud an area that we now call Saudi Arabia, which was nothing there, no assets or anything else, because everybody wanted Mesopotamia and the oil that was in all those fields. So they were ignored and pushed them over there.
Saudi Arabia or Syria?
Saudi Arabia was an isolated desert that was nothing there. And then these two geologists, one of them from San Antonio, California, and others think, I think there is oil there. And they went there, and what later became Aramco, the oil company, they cut a deal in the Middle East. The deal was that with Iran and the rest of the people in Mesopotamia was that we get 90% and you get 10%.
But we had to do the drilling and everything.
Yeah, but we got 90-10. These two young geologists cut a better deal for the Saudis, a much larger percentage, and the Saudis were delighted with it, and everything was fine. Now, the other countries looked and say, wait a minute, we're not getting our fair share. And there was a young man was elected president of Iran who said, wait a minute, this is not fair. It's ours. It's our asset. It's our minerals. We're not getting anything for them. I'm going to demand it and nationalize it, and we'll sell it to whoever the highest bidder. Well, we found out we couldn't have that. There was a young man named Kermit Roosevelt, who was the son of Teddy. They went in and created a campaign to remove that man, have another election and remove him so they could cut the same deal they had before. And in that process, they put in the Shah. The Shah of Iran was there for a long, long time, and they had all these things. But then a guy named President of the United States said, wait a minute, I don't like what he's doing. I don't like his Secret Service and all that stuff. So Jimmy Carter says he's got to go. The Iranian Shah developed cancer. We wouldn't allow him in here to be treated and a lot of other things. And to make a long story short, he was removed, and we flew in and paid for a flight to bring in the Ayatollah, who was in exile in France. So now the whole situation in Iran can be traced back to these things. And this is the important part of history, because history is an intelligence body that can give you the information you need to determine what's going on today.
Understand it a little better. what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Without going back to where these things originated, all of the oil companies and others that wanted that, because at the end of World War I, they converted from coal-burning ships that had to have oil. Most of the countries had no natural resources at all. The United States was lucky. We were the number one exporter of oil for a long time. As the Saudis and others came online, everything changed. But these are the things that go on. And I'm telling you all of these things because in that process, then you come back to the CIA and what they're doing and what they needed to do and what others are taking advantage of and what this gentleman, Kevin Shipp, is saying and all that. And in your process, if you blow the whistle on any of these agencies, and I'm talking about not only that, but across the board, they will literally destroy you, your family. A situation like that going on right now involving this so-called Russian intervention in the election. And all these people that are being subjected to all these investigations and all that, and character assassination and destroying their families and everything else. It's a classic example of what we were talking about earlier. All of these things go on. It's that human element that we have to constantly watch.
In other words, you're saying that the rank and file pretty much on the up and up,
Exactly.
but sometimes a leader gets in charge of it, that political or something,
right.
and has an axe to grind. We look at Comey and the FBI. He was working for Obama more than he was for America, it seems.
And he was cutting a deal with Hillary so that he could even further promoted after she's elected. This is another part of the upward mobility that some of these people look at and think about. Very perverted thing, but it's real and it's part of the human nature.
That's part of the whole ball of wax.
The things that have developed over the last 30 years and the agencies that are involved have given greater base for those kind of things to take place.
Well, now, this gentleman, Kevin Shipp, he did a 3-hour DVD on YouTube, and he talks about the shadow government. He includes in that with the CIA, the media, CFR,
Council of Foreign Relations.
Council of Foreign Relations, okay, and Silicon Valley, and here's the FBI included. He includes that in the shadow government. Again, I guess we'd have to say that it's not the whole FBI, but just some of these leaders.
It goes back to the leaders. Who appoints them and where did they come from? Most of them didn't come through the rank and file. They had some experience, but most of them are politically appointees who have a separate agenda.
Especially under Obama.
Exactly, and he spent the last 6 months of his administration making sure that he appointed people in key positions at all the agencies of federal government. But we've talked about this, Dr. Simon, in the past. We've talked about what happened with the media, what happened with academics, and all of the things that have gone on to create the atmosphere that is existing now.
Now, he also talks about the deep state, and he makes a distinction between the shadow government and the deep state.